Joe Perry of Aerosmith. Nuff said. We are always happy anytime we get the chance to speak with Joe, and we recently spoke with him to talk about an appearance he's got coming up at the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. He'll be in Hollywood, Florida in December with Tico Torres from Bon Jovi and Living Color's Vernon Reid. They have a ton of camps that are coming up, and you can find all of the information at rockcamp.com. I thought it was kind of cool that he said, as far as guitar, there's not a lot that I can add except to show people my particular riffs and how I got there. Very humble. He shares some good memories of his early days as a guitar player and also digs into some Aerosmith history, shares his thoughts on Van Halen, and information about a revamped version of his Sweetzerland Manifesto album that's in the pipeline. That was supposed to be released for Record Store Day, but it's been held up due to vinyl pressing delays. We ask him about the rumors that Sammy Hagar was asked to join Aerosmith, so there's a lot there, and Joe had a lot to say. We'll start off with a quick story about Prince.
You know, before we dig into this rock camp stuff, I wanted to start real quick and just find out, did you ever meet Prince, and do you have a good Prince story?
Yeah, the one time I saw him play, first time I saw him play, was in L.A., and I think it was after I left Aerosmith. And anyway, I was out in L.A., and it was playing. I don't remember, but it was his first gig out there in a big arena, and you know the backstage was kind of like, you know, pretty mobbed. You know, by then, you know, word was out, and he was like, you know, he was starting to peak, you know, and anyway, he had just put on an amazing show, and I remember there was a bunch of people back. I mean, a bunch of you know, music people back there backstage, and I remember Bruce Springsteen was there, and I talked with him for a while. I hadn't seen him for forever, and then
Wow.
Finally Prince came out, and you know, and he looked beat, totally worn out, you know, after a show like that, and I'm sure the last thing he wanted to do was go out and mix with the you know, the after show thing. But you know, there were a lot of people there, and this was his you know, early on in his career, and we sat and talked for a couple minutes, you know, but his he just seemed really tired, and as you would expect. But we talked a little bit, and that was the first time I met him. And I mean, he was a stunning performer back then, you know, as he was all for the rest of his career too, you know.
Yeah, I mean, as a guitar player, you being a guitar player, it seems like similar to Eddie Van Halen, that would have been something to behold. You know, seeing Prince as a fellow guitar player, that would be something to take in.
Yeah, well, you know, I never really saw him as a guitar player. I saw pictures of him, and I knew that he played, but it wasn't until we played with him in Berlin at I think it was the first. I don't know. It was the first annual MTV Awards, maybe, or something like that. It was a big deal. I set it up at the that big arena, not arena, the big arch there with the Four Horsemen at this hop in Berlin, you know, and they set it up there, and it was a really big deal, and it was a long event, you know, and anyway, I wanted to go back and say hi to him, and you know, of course, by then he was surrounded by, you know, 300-pound guys, you know, and you know, you just didn't get close to him at that point. You know, he's so private if he's not on stage. And anyway, my wife and I, Billy and I, walked over to his trailer and you know, told the guys, you know, who I was, and he came out and talked with us for a while, you know, and he was really friendly. Again, he was. I think it might have been after his show, but that's when he came out and he started the show with about a 45-minute ripping guitar solo, and it was like he had a really cool setup on stage. It was I think it was a Mesa Boogie head with 3 2x12s, kind of like parked together like a pyramid, so it was like everybody could hear it on the stage, in the house, it was really unique. I'd never seen anybody set it up like that, but in the audience, it sounded great. But what impressed me the most was his I mean, he was if he just had to just be a guitar player, that would be it. I mean, he really he could rip it up, with the best of them, and that's when I was really impressed with his guitar playing. And I think he was playing his My Name Is Not Prince, but this is the shape of my guitar.
Nice, the cymbal
He
guitar.
had one of those.
Yeah.
And boy, man, it sounded great. His tone was like spot on. And anyway, that's when I first realized he was he was really a guitar player,
Well, talking about rock camp, what is it that because you bring a lot to the table, what is it that you kind of look to impart to the campers that you're working with?
Well, at this point, there's a lot. As far as guitar goes, there's not a lot I can add except, show people my my particular riffs and how I get there, which is probably what everybody does when they do this. But because we're not born teachers, some of the cats are, but I'm not, and we just show by playing, and we kind of answer questions. But playing the just meeting the people, the young guys, because every time I do it, they're young guys, and I learn a lot from listening to what they're playing, because they're most of their playing is pretty amazing, considering say where they are in their journey learning how to play the guitar, which once you start it, you never stop. It's not like there's a finish line or anything. I like listening to their questions and listening to what they're playing. Technically, I mean, 90% of them are like pretty amazing for their for being just say amateurs or playing in in clubs or whatever, or and then there are the fans. There's a few in there that are fans, just want to meet me and talk to me as a fan. And I can kind of figure out who's who by some of the questions they ask, and then what they want after our session is over. It's like the guys that still want to know, who want a picture and sign their book or whatever. Those guys are there more because they want to just, meet me. And then there are the other guys that are just, they're there because they want to learn whatever I can show them, But, all in all, I think it's a great chance for me to listen to what a lot of the cats are playing, the whole younger generation.
You've got such a long history of doing what you do. So what's really surprising to you that like a guitar player wants to know about how you do what you do? Like what's I guess some of the questions that have been asked you that really you're like, man, that's just something I don't even think about.
Well, if there was anybody that weren't by the seat of their pants, without any like background help, that's my story. And but also I think that's when if I can get that across in a couple of minutes, it's a good lesson. And if you keep working at it, you're gonna find your voice, as a guitar player. And at the very least, you're gonna entertain yourself, which is what you're trying to do. Every time you play and you learn a new riff, or learn a new song, you're doing it because you're sitting in a room alone, chances are. And then if you're going to go out and play at a party or out on the beach and sing songs everybody knows, all that stuff. It's all it's stuff that you basically, it's a personal thing. It's you and your guitar and whatever it is you're learning from, and that's it, man. And these days there's so many things on YouTube. It's amazing. I mean, sometimes I'll even go back and listen to a guitar solo that Alvin Lee. I'll go back and I remember like sitting in the audience going, God, how the fuck? Because for about 5 minutes he was like the fastest guitar player on the planet, and that was his thing, Yeah. But listening to him play now, I know exactly what he's doing, and I can pick it apart, and I can probably learn the riff, because that's I mean, like I said, back when I saw him, I was stunned. I was just getting it together to play chords, God damn it, and this guy was like tearing it up with that band, and so those are the kind of things, like that you kind of at this point, because of YouTube, it's amazing how guitar players, can really advance themselves to learn the technical stuff and then take it from there. I mean, I hear so many like demos and from kids really, and that have put their time in, and they're playing some great stuff, and then and writing some great songs. I mean, just playing a great guitar solo, or learning the different famous guitar songs for for no, that's great to do. But I think that thing about guitar, as any other instrument, it's always wanting to play that next thing that you always wanted to be able to play, and you find yourself, put the time in, you can do it. And so that's the thing that I try and impress on the guys. If they have any question about that, I mean, you can play just about anything you can hear if you put the time in, and you can learn it from the internet. It's pretty amazing. But anyway, that's but there's nothing. I can't imagine being able to sit in a room with Jimmy Page as an amateur. Not, I hate to say amateur, because anyway, it kind of makes it sound like you're not like an all-in guitar player. Like people always say, well, I'm just an amateur, or I don't know enough about music. Well, you know everything about music you need to know if you like music, and if you want to, you are it. It's like when you're a painter, it's not like well, I'm not a painter, I can't paint as good as blah blah. Well, as soon as you pick up the brush, you're a painter, and then you're on the journey. And it's not about like how supposedly good people are, or whatever, or what other people think of your playing. It's all about, or painting, it's all about you're on the journey. Once you pick up the brush, or listen, and once you get paid $10 to play at a party, you're a guitar player, and there's no question that that you're professional at that point. I don't know. I think that's the toughest thing when anybody starting an art early doesn't consider themselves, in it and on the journey because they can't sound like blah blah or paint like blah blah or or sculpt like this one. That's just the wrong way to think, man. Because everybody's like they're on the journey. I still am.
Yeah, and also there's a certain magic that comes out for you as a player because of what you don't know. I mean, sometimes it's really good to not know the perceived rules.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I never learned the perceived rules other than what I heard on the radio or off records. I just got I guess you call it a biography anthology from that Jimmy Page put out. And he's got every bit of notepads, some of the original guitars he had, others he has exactly what it was that for some reason got traded off or whatever, and he was like literally on TV on a talent show at 14 years old. When I look at his history, I mean he had to have spent thousands of hours in the studio before he did the first Led Zeppelin record. I mean, for whatever reason, cultural or whatever. And there are a lot of other artists like this that got, they grew up in music. Their parents were musicians, either professional or just amateur, or at least they played the kind of music that was inspiring, and then they helped further the kids' journey along by making sure they had the instrument they wanted. And really, I didn't get my first electric guitar until I was probably 17 years old, 17 or 18 years old, and that was that's starting late compared to a lot of guys out there, but you can make up for it in certain ways, and now it's like you can pick up a guitar when you're 30 years old, and if you put in the hours and either get a teacher or just go on YouTube, and you can advance yourself pretty fast. It's pretty amazing, But I also think that it's made guitar. It's such an icon now. I mean, it means so much. I mean, so many times you'll see like something on TV or somebody's apartment or whatever, and there's a guitar in the background. That never would have happened 10 years ago. It's really become not only an iconic instrument, but one that is like all across the board. It's part of our vocabulary, in our social vocabulary. Guitar means so much to so many people, even if they don't play. They just see it, and all of a sudden they can rock and roll. So anyway, it's been an amazing journey to see how the guitar has come along. And fortunately, there are guys out there that still hold the guitar as it's got its guitar heroes, but then so did guitar with Segovia, and there were other players that that you heard their name and you knew about, like back in the 50s. There were these amazing Spanish guitar players. They didn't play the kind of music I like, but they were like they were held up as the best of the best, and just like any other kind of any kind of art. But as it eased its way into our vocabulary and our social connection with people, guitar became I mean, I remember when you walked down the street with a guitar case, people would gather around you and talk to you. You know, or you'd walk by, somebody would stop and say, "Wow, you play guitar? Really? You know, what's it like?" Or I mean, because it was back then, you know, there were guitar players, you know, on TV, but it was still kind of an underground thing, you know. At least from my perspective. I mean, obviously, socially, it became people were singing, you know, protest songs using the guitar, which was a amazingly adaptive instrument for any kind of music, but which is what led to what it is. You know, back then it was unique. You know, and a lot of people had problems with it. I mean, and again, I have to get a little more specific, but you know, my parents would not buy me a guitar. I mean, it was like they associated that with Rebel Without a Cause, and, you know, switchblades, greased back hair, and that was rock and roll to them. That was it. I mean, they tried to be, you know, I had piano lessons for 2 years. I played clarinet for about a month. And then, you know, I tried a couple instruments, but man, nothing. It was like, it wasn't the kind of music that made me want to do anything other than put that particular instrument down. You know? So, but then when I heard rock and roll, and I'm going, wait a second, you know, the first guitar lesson I had, you know, this guy's starting to teach me music, which was, you know, I wanted to get right to the guts of it, you know. But classic, you know, you train somebody classically in any instrument, you know, learning how to read music and all that. It's like it's part of the itinerary, I guess you call it. No, there's a better word for it, but I can't think of it right now. But it's like that's part of the thing, you know. You start off and you know, like the notes on the guitar, how they associate to classically music, written music. It's like so you're really not even playing songs, even if it's not kind of music you like.
Yeah,
you're not really playing songs for a while, you know. I mean, I don't think anybody can play. Maybe they get to play one or two notes on violin. It takes a while to even get a decent sound out of one, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's tough because they treated guitar as learning another kind of classic instrument, and this was an instrument that was just building. It was building up, man. And when you see three guys and a drummer who can make any amount of people literally lose their minds because of their look, the way that they, and the music that they played was so full and incredibly moving that, you know, before that it took a 100-piece orchestra. You know, the kind of music they wrote, it was it certainly had excitement built into it, but it wasn't the kind of excitement that's so visceral it makes you want to dance. You know, and it was so physical. What rock and roll brought to the whole state of things. I mean, it made. That's why people were afraid of it. That's why you know, Link Wray, probably the simple. Those are like the three fucking chords that, if you can play them in a row, you're making progress. You know, I mean, it was that song was so simple, and yet the story goes at the dance he was playing at, he played that, and they kept saying, we want that. He played it 5 or 6 times in a row, and somebody heard it, I guess a record guy, and the next thing you know, he's in the studio. And what is he doing? He's he's sticking pencils, or he took his switchblade, and cut up the speaker to get the sound, and that was that's the legend, and that's the start of, again, an instrument that didn't exist back in the 40s and the very early 50s. I mean, the amplifiers were there to make the guitar louder, but it didn't. The amplifier turned the guitar into a new instrument that could fill with sound an arena. That before that, you needed to have a bunch of instruments up there to create that full music, and that's the thing. And then of course, when you saw the Beatles, and this is the very, very, of course, a lot went on before them, a lot went on after them, but because of their the whole teeny bop thing and the pop music, and which one do you like better? I think Paul's cuter than Ringo, but Ringo's so cute, that kind of shit. A lot of it, their music was totally overlooked, and that's in the end why they stopped touring, because people weren't listening to their music when they played live. And they were unquestionably one of the best live bands ever, even today. And they were a combination of talent that was unbelievable. And but what they did was they brought that guitar, that sound, to the forefront, to everybody. Because if you weren't a kid on the edge of your seat watching them on TV, you were an adult watching your kid watch the TV, and that scared the shit out of a lot of people. Boy, nothing stopped it. And that's why they that simple riff, that those three chords, and then the basic pentatonic thing that Link Wray did. That was banned on the radio. an instrumental, and because it obviously the people in charge heard a lot of stuff in there. And, it's interesting when people want to put something else down, like and you don't hear it that way, or you like it, and they're like trying to get rid of it. It's hitting something in them too that they don't like, and they don't want that woken up, because there is a part of them that had to hear the sexuality of rock and roll, and that kind of music, with a heavy beat, that's the thing that fucking it freaked them out. The straight society, the them and the us versus them, just they couldn't stand it, and it just shows how fast, when John Lennon made that statement, which was a very, very, he knew what he was talking about. He was right, about the Beatles being more popular than Jesus. It wasn't in a demeaning way. He wasn't trying to create a revolution. All he wanted to do, he just told the truth. And it didn't take long for a lot of those people who were sitting back going, those guys, we hate those guys, to start the bonfires and burning their stuff. Yeah. It was really, but it showed, like what a battleground was going on as far as music goes, and the different generations that were hearing it. And, one side, those were the marching orders for a new generation, and the other side, it was that's the stuff we got to stomp down. We can't have that. It sounds too black. We can't have that. You know, I mean, when Elvis came out, everybody thought that he was another, black singer. You know, they allowed it on the radio
Mm-hmm.
at first, but then when they found out he was this white kid with very well spoken and respectful, that really broke through, man. You know, and that really got the whole thing going because they had to play the stuff. I mean, there was no way you could. So that's where the money was. You know, they played Elvis over and over and over again, and there was nothing they could do about it. And he did one of the best things to get black music on the radio because it made it more acceptable to sound like that on the radio. You know, I mean, it was something that I think people overlook. You know, when they talk about Elvis, part of what held him back at the very beginning.
Well, yeah, and you talk about stuff that turns the tide, like Elvis, the Beatles, Wray. I mean, the grunge revolution. From your perspective, how much were you into that stuff as a musician and music fan, and how did that kind of affect Aerosmith at the time? Because I've always found it really interesting that, like, as a band, you guys were making music in the midst of all that and triumphed. So I'm kind of curious for your perspective.
I really liked Nirvana. I thought they were fucking. Because basically, if you didn't know anything about them and you listen to the music, especially the singles and stuff, it sounds like rock and roll. It sounds, there isn't much different between that and what they called the hair band. Is what we were, that generation. I mean, I never consider us a hair band, but we came in at a very weird time. You have to understand that. I mean, we were influenced by the second English invasion, but
yeah,
in my mind, we were. And now a lot of people lump us into that group. I mean, it wasn't too long ago. I was standing on the stage in Tokyo with Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, just the three of us, and then about 40 other guys from other bands were standing over there watching us. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
It's like it's kind of weird. I mean, we came up at a kind of a strange time because we were influenced by those bands, but we were listening to, I don't know, I think Led Zeppelin 3 or 4, I'm not sure which one, but when we wrote the first song for our first record, so we kind of came up like in the middle there, like right at the beginning of the 70s, and we really didn't start peaking, till we were. And the music, pulled us there, but it wasn't until like 74, 75 that we started to conquer, and become credible, because we're an American band, but we were sounding like an English band. I know that's why like in Boston, we were kind of looked at as outsiders, I mean, we didn't really play the clubs in Boston, we played out in the suburbs and we were the America's garage band. That's kind of how I look at it. We were the band you could come to see and you could relate to, because you couldn't go to see the Stones or Led Zeppelin every night. And we played all across America, and people realized we were actually a different kind of band than Zeppelin or the Stones. And so back then we fell kind of like in the cracks. It was we weren't the Dolls, we were like a blues based rock band, and we were influenced by the by those English bands, that that came over, the Who and the Yardbirds, and we liked what we were hearing, how they were interpreting American music, American R&B and blues, but we got kind of caught in the middle there. So it wasn't until we really kind of, we played some of the biggest gigs on record, but it just it wasn't Woodstock, and it wasn't Monterey, but I mean, Cal Jam 2 was something like 400,000 people. I mean,
oh yeah.
But and finally we burned out, and it wasn't until we got back together and started rolling that people started to and see us on TV and see that we weren't Led Zeppelin and we weren't the Stones, and listen to the music, because we didn't sound like either one of those bands, and we kind of like got in on the tail end of the MTV generation. So we saw all these hair bands coming up, and of course, Van Halen. They like Eddie was the leader in a whole new generation of guitar players, and he changed guitar playing in it. His style, everything. I mean, it was funny because when I heard some of this stuff, I said, wow, I've heard that effect before. I've heard that before, but he's the one that put it all together, and it was new. And man, I thought that Van Halen was an incredible band. David Lee Roth was like the Jimi Hendrix of the mouth, and he was when they were at their peak, they were the best. They were rocking. They were. My feeling about who's the best is you might see a band tomorrow night in your local club, and if they're playing there and they're on the money, and they're like, you can tell they're locked in and they're rocking, and the audience is going crazy. They're the best band in the world that night. It's the best, the biggest, all that stuff it's all just so arbitrary.
Yeah.
People need to label stuff, and I think it's a waste of time. Like they're a band you never heard of. When they're having their night, they are the best. Because you're only as good as your next show.
So true. Oh yeah. I have two final things for you here. You mentioned Van Halen, and I spoke with Sammy Hagar at the end of last week, and he talked about being approached to join Aerosmith and how he gave it some serious thought. And I kind of wondered, what was it about Sammy? How did he land in your sights as a possible collaborator and bandmate?
Well, it was a really another one of those times. You don't keep a band together without a lot of bumps and grinds. I mean, I've heard of bands. I won't get into the names, but I've heard of bands that just would not. They don't even talk to each other. When they would have a band meeting, they'd walk in, and each one would have their lawyer in a briefcase, and they would get their business done and then walk out. And they just didn't, they weren't the guys they were when they first started. And there's a lot of that. Every band has its ups and downs. It just was at a point where I'm not sure. Everybody has something. When I left the band, for like 4 years, and I have since put out 6 or 7 solo records. I got another one coming out.
Oh, great!
But anyway, over the years, and everybody has to like bust out and do what and I remember, and Stephen doing that TV show. I thought that was great, I was, and I just knew he had to do something like that, and doing that solo record that he did, he really wanted to and so the band wasn't that tight, and he was, there was talk, and there was so many people involved, like I said, lawyers, there were like different managers, and it was like, I think Steven wants to maybe take 4 years off, do what he wants to do. And so the whole, looking around for another lead singer thing, just as soon as that raised its head, and it was, I don't know where it was quoted, but, I don't even know, I don't know, maybe I did, I don't know, but I can't kind of, I'm usually the one on the other end of the phone when it comes to Aerosmith stuff, but I don't even know if I talked to Sammy. I'm not sure. I know it got out there, but Sam, we know him, and I know him as he's a really mellow guy, easy to get along with,
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think he had, and he definitely had the pipes, if you to interpret Aerosmith songs. So, I can see why that idea had been floated. But we also had there were we had a short list at that point, and but it's like things went the way they did. Everybody got out of the system what they wanted to, and then we slowly glued back together. I mean, you could say the band split apart more than when I left, and then Brad left. There were other times when we were like, okay, that's enough. We've done enough, and whether it was Steven or whatever, it's that's what it takes to keep it together. But as of today, I consider him the brother that I never had, and we're probably as close together now as we've ever been, and and we're looking forward to getting back on the road together. So it's a long journey, man, and the steps go sideways, and I think that it would have been an interesting thing if it came to pass, but it just I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I literally don't know if Sammy had been asked. Maybe you know more than I do about it, but I can't remember that. I know that his name came up as well as some other guys.
Yeah.
It's anyway.
Well, you mentioned a solo record, man. So, like, I really dug the last record that you did with, Sharon and Robin Zander and all the different folks that you collaborated with on that record. Like, what can you tell us about this new solo record that you've got kind of in the pipeline?
Well, there were a couple of songs that weren't ready to go on that CD. Plus, I wanted to keep the songs down to like the old days, like not like 17 songs, putting 10 songs on there just felt right. But I had we had those were the songs that I felt were ready to go, and then I wrote a couple more with my son Roman engineering one session, and one I went to his studio, and then Tony, my Billy and I's. I have an oldest son, Adrian, who's 40, who's a lawyer.
Yeah.
And he and his wife is a lawyer, and he has three of our grandkids, and then we have Aaron, so Adrian's like 36, something like that. And
Yeah.
I don't keep track. But anyway, at least not at this age. But anyway, and Aaron is a computer whiz, and he takes care of all of the social media for Aerosmith and for the Hollywood Vampires, and of course my stuff. When I start to get moving, and so anyway, those are our two oldest, but the two younger ones are my wife Billy and mine, and I wrote. They're both Roman teachers online, engineering and production, and does some other stuff that's that's great in music. Plus he writes and does soundtracks for video games. Anyway, and they grew up on the road, so I'm not sure they really want that. They wanted that kind of life. They know what it takes to do to do rock and roll. Do a band like this.
Yeah.
Plus the times change. So anyway, and Tony is he works at Spotify. Anyway, so they're in the mix. And they grew up with a 1971 32 input Neve broadcast board in the basement. With Aerosmith coming in and out, we recorded Honkin' on Bobo down there, like totally live. We did Just Push Play in there. We worked on music for 9 Lives, everything from Permanent Vacation. We worked down there. Literally thousands of hours in that studio. That board was customized by Perry Margoloff, who's amazing. This board was had people come in, producers come in and say it was the best sounding recording board that they've heard. But anyway, that's what they grew up with, a really good studio in the basement and a lot of talented people coming through, so they got and not only that, but they went on the road all the time with us, so they knew what the ups and downs of it, and Tony and Adrian had a band called Dead Boots, and then the first one was Tab, TAB.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Not to be, and then the last record they called Dead Boots, DED, and I think that one might be their best one. They put out some great music, but Adrian had to make a choice. He wanted he didn't want to be on the road, and I don't think Tony was into it. They knew what it takes to be on the road and have that kind of a life, and I think that as much as they liked being on the road growing up, they didn't want to go that way. So that band just they kind of like called it quits, and Adrian went on to be a lawyer and and have a family, and Tony's out in LA at Spotify. Anyway, so the kids came. I wrote a couple of songs with each one of them, and those were sitting there, and I had about 5 or 6, 7 songs that didn't make it on the Sweetzerland Manifesto record, and so we took. But I wanted to put something out on vinyl, so I figured, well, let's just put put those songs on, and then we'll pull some of our favorites off of Manifesto and put out a vinyl record. And because vinyl is so it's so popular now. It takes a couple months to get one. If you hand them the master, it takes a couple of months to get it out there. And I think the next slot that we could get is like maybe in the middle of the summer, maybe in the fall. I don't know, but I think what we're going to do is put the new tunes out and then and do like a pre-order on the vinyl, because we're putting a lot of time into the vinyl. I mean, it's like, hey, when you talk about putting out a vinyl record, it's one thing, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. But that's what is great about doing vinyl. I mean, you get all that room for artwork. You get to hold the in your hands, which hopefully if that's how you make the record. But you see like who the guys that are actually like playing and all that. So we're putting that together, and the most as important to me as a vinyl is to me putting the artwork together and showing the faces of the guys that played. I mean, it's hard to find that. You buy some music online, and you have to do some digging to get any kind of like cohesive idea of the bands. And when a band's first record comes out, if it's on vinyl, you got the pictures of them right there. You got the hopefully the backstory. I mean, you get a vibe, or you get some artwork that also reflects the where the band is coming from. There was so much to getting to vinyl, and not just the needle on the plastic. So anyway, we wanted to put this one out on vinyl, and we're about 80% there with the artwork and getting a slot, to get the record pressed. I have a couple of acetates here.
Nice.
And it sounds pretty good, So, I mean, I would love to be able to put them out tomorrow, but it's not like the old days when you could hand a mastered record in, and you could get it printed in 2 weeks, and it'd take a little longer to get the artwork done, but you could get a record out like within a month. Back when albums were albums, and so that said, it's kind of like it's coming along, so it'll be like another 10-song album, but the main thing is to have all that artwork and see all the cats that played on the record, and then we'll probably do kind of a video of something, of all because the only gig I did to promote the record was at the Roxy, on Sunset, and all the guys that played on the record and sang, they showed up. It was amazing. I mean, it blew my mind. We were able to get that together, and so there'll be some pictures from that on the vinyl, on the record sleeve, but also we'll do we'll probably end up doing a whole video of the show. But,
good.
I mean, it's but at some point. But right now, we'll probably put some clips of that because we didn't get any video of certain, some of the cats, at the studio. I mean, sometimes people would roll in at like 1 a.m, and so we weren't exactly like set up to take video and all that shit. So it was that's why I kind of we call it Sweetzerland. There was a vibe up there that was really like a lot of creativity going on there, and you know. Anyway, so yeah, so that stuff is coming out. I think there's one song that's out you can get. It's called Quake, and that's with Gary Sharon on it, and that's the one that Roman engineered. I think that's on. I think you can get that on Apple. I'm not sure.
So, final thing that I want to wrap up with is just clarifying what you just talked about. Like, if there are 5 or 6, songs that haven't been out, are there special guests on those songs? Like, did you do, like, say, other songs with Sharon or anything like that?
Yeah, this one with Chris Robinson.
Oh, nice.
I think that Terry Reid's on. I think there's 1 or 2 songs on. In fact, the song that's on there. He's been playing when he goes out and plays live. That one was a really he really delivered. In fact, this vinyl, I think, pound for pound, I think I might like it better than the first one. I don't know, but that's a real arbitrary race. So anyway, it's and then there are a couple of instrumentals, and then I think that there's I don't think there's a song on there that I sing. I think that it's pretty much that. Robin Zander on it. It's got, like I said, it's got some tunes from the first edition, and because again, a lot of action happened after the release of Manifesto. We wrote some new songs, and some of the ones that hadn't been finished, got finished, and so anyway, just another thing to add to the pile.
That's the legendary Joe Perry of Aerosmith. Visit rockcamp.com to find out more about Joe's appearance at Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. Get more from Joe Perry by clicking the link in this video's description, and make sure to subscribe to our UCR channel here on YouTube for all of the best news and history of classic rock and pop culture.